Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. I'm Shah and this is Thoroughly Enjoyed Books. Today I'm bringing you another video about my master's experience. I have a playlist full of videos where I talk about why I went back to uni, how I managed to balance university, doing my masters with working full time, and what my other modules were in the first half of my masters, so in the first year. I am due to go back to university this week to do the second half of my masters, and as you can predict, it's been a bit crazy, and even right now I still have no idea what is expected of me, whether my classes are going to be online, whether I'm going to be going into class. I have a weird feeling I might be the only person on my course this year, because last year there were 4 people and I don't see many people applying for masters under the current circumstances, particularly my course, which is quite niche. However, I have signed up for my module for this year. Yes, this semester I'm only doing one module, a singular module, and I believe it works with like one seminar every 2 weeks. So I have like 5 seminars and that's it. But I have the books here that I was told by my tutor to get for this module, and I thought I would just go through them and tell you kind of what they're about, a little bit about the module I'm doing, why I chose that module, and how it leads into the rest of my masters. The first module that I will be doing in the second half of my masters is queer literary fiction. This is a module all about queer fiction, and it obviously takes like a traditional look at gender and sexuality, as well as a more modern perception of gender and sexuality. And we are looking at literary fiction that features queer characters, particularly when it comes to gender. Some of it might be outdated compared to how we talk about it now, and that gives a different critical viewpoint of the books. So some of these books might sound a little bit problematic. That is kind of the point of them, and we can't just completely ignore previous perceptions of gender and sexuality. When we are analysing literature, we do have to look at the whole history. I only have 4 books here, and one of them I've already read in the past, and the other 3 I'm really excited to get to. One of them I'm not sure how it relates to this module, so I'm quite excited to get to that. But I'm quite happy that 3 of them are quite short, and even though this one is quite large, I will obviously talk about it a bit more. It probably won't be as hefty as it looks. The first one I have to talk about is Orlando by Virginia Woolf. I actually already read this book on another module in my undergraduate degree, which I believe was also a gender module. I can't 100% remember. I remember not liking this book when I first read it. This follows our main character Orlando, who changes gender throughout the book. They are a person who lives for centuries, and it explores the ideas of gender roles and sexuality throughout history. I believe we go back as far as the 1700s right up into the 1900s, maybe even further. This looks at the perception of gender in each time period and what the roles were then, what were the expectations, what were the sexualities, and it looks at the fluidity of gender. Like I said, Orlando is somebody who changes their gender. They might even change their sex in this book. I'm not 100% sure on that. I will have to obviously do more research into it. I'm really looking forward to studying this again, because the first time I read it, I really didn't enjoy it, and so I skipped over it for the particular module I was studying it for. However, because this is a master's, we do look into them in more depth, and my understanding of literature has developed quite a lot. So hopefully I will enjoy this one a little bit more this time around. And now that I have more of an understanding of the fluidity of gender, maybe it'll make more sense to me. This was written in the 1920s, so it might be outdated, but I also know it was progressive for that time. So we'll see my opinions of this when I read it. This will be probably the first one that I do read for this module. Next we have In Transit by Bridgid, Brophy. As you can see on the front, it says a transsexual adventure. So when I talked about outdated perceptions of gender, outdated terminology is also used on this as well. This is again an old book. I want to say it's from the 60s, but I'm not 100% sure. It was first published in 1969. That's very apt for a book about sex and gender. Ignore my little giggles. This is about a main character called Evelyn, who is exploring their gender identity. I'm not sure at this point if Evelyn is their given name at birth and they are assigned female at birth, or if Evelyn is a name that they take on later on, so they're a trans woman. I'm not 100% sure on that yet because I haven't read this, but this is about a transgender person. It was written in the 1960s, so I am expecting this to be a little outdated. Like I said, it talks about transsexual rather than transgender in the actual title of this book, and it follows their coming to terms with their gender, exploring their gender and how they understand the world through that gender. They do try to change gender or intend to change gender, but I'm not sure what happens in the book. I can't explain this one anymore at this point because I haven't read it, so I'm not going to try. But I think this will be a really interesting look, particularly at early trans literature. Very much looking forward to this one. This was a nightmare to get hold of because it is actually out of print now. I ordered a copy off eBay, and then the order was cancelled because apparently they didn't have the book, and then I couldn't get a copy for less than £15 anywhere, and then this one eventually did pop back up on eBay for, I think it was about £6, which is a more reasonable price for a book. The cover of this book obviously depicts a masculine figure with high heels and breasts, so I think that this will have a lot of interesting discussions, but like I said, I am expecting it to be very outdated. I don't know how I'll feel about it, but it will be interesting to study. The next book I have is The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks. I've done a bit of research on this one. I can't really figure out why this is on this module, but it sounds like an interesting read anyway. This is about a 16-year-old boy called Frank who is psychotic. Ian Banks is more well known as a science fiction writer, but I believe he had trouble getting published with his science fiction at first, so he wrote this more realistic book, and it is about this young boy called Frank who I believe has killed people, killed children. When he was little, like before the age of 10, he killed children, and now he's starting to experiment on bugs and animals, so it explores the idea of violence, and I'm assuming because this is a sex and gender module it applies that to masculinity. I don't know though, I'm not 100% sure. I just know it is all about him killing people and killing animals and experimenting and torturing animals. Apparently it does have some kind of scientific and monster alien vibes to it. I'm not sure if there are any actual aliens in here. Like I said, I've not read it, but this will be an interesting book as well, if not a little bit disturbing. From just talking about it, I feel like it's going to be a mix between we need to talk about Kevin and the Dumb House, so I think it'll be one that I will find fascinating. And this one was published in 1985, so again probably has some very traditional discussions of gender and gender roles. And the last book I'm going to talk about in this video is Woman's World, a graphic novel by Graham Rawl. I saw a graphic novel when this landed on my doorstep and I thought, oh, that's interesting for a literary module at university, but it is not a graphic novel in the traditional sense. What this book is actually completely constructed from fragments of women's magazines from the 1960s, as you can see here. So it's kind of put together like ransom notes. The author drafted out the novel and then went through collections of women's magazines from the 1960s and then put them together in this book, as you can see there, which I think is quite cool. And I think the purpose of this is that this book explores gender roles in the 1960s, and it looks at how our perception of gender was formed by other parts of the media, what was expected primarily on women. So I'm very much excited to get into this one. It sounds interesting. It's quite hefty, but I'm hoping that this multimedia kind of form means that it is quite quick to get through, because there aren't that many words actually on the page, and I think it's going to have a lot of interesting insight into expectations from, you know, the 50s and the 60s. I can't really say anything else until I've read it, but I'll be interesting to know about the character names. I'm wondering if the character names were, you know, very popular at this time. Very fascinating. Don't know anything else about it, but we'll see what happens when I do read this. So these are all the books that are on my queer fiction module for my first semester of university. Do let me know if you've read any of these, because I think the only one I had previously heard of was Orlando. I think I have heard of the Wasp Factory, but not a lot about it. And then the other two I've never heard at all. I'm really excited to read them. I am expecting them to be a little bit problematic because these are quite old. This one is actually the most recent one. It was written in 2005. Very excited about this module. As you know, queer fiction is my topic. My dissertation is going to be on queer literature. So I'm really hoping that this module is going to build up my understanding for that module and for my dissertation, because I'm so excited to write my dissertation, and I am going to do a video talking about my dissertation idea pretty soon. I do want to have at least one session with my tutor before I discuss that, but pretty much the whole of my second year is going to be looking at my dissertation. It just gives us that little bit more time to work on it, and I've mentioned before it's going to be on Sarah Waters, so that gives you a bit of an idea of the sort of thing I'm going to be looking at. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're going to start a Masters in Literature this year, I'd love to hear all about it, or if you're just going to university this year in general, how are you feeling about it all? Because I know COVID is making things feel very different than they normally would, and I am going to talk a little bit about what I expect from university amongst all this COVID havoc and the disruption that is obviously going to cause to studying, and how I'm feeling about that in general. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. As usual, I will leave my links down below to my Twitter, my Goodreads and all that good stuff. Go and follow me on there and talk to me about books, and I can't wait to see you in another video very, very soon. Take care. Bye.